Yeah, I get it. WGN.
That's a great point.
No, WGN created a country of Cub fans. That was a pretty unique situation at the time, because it was the only team on nationally like that.
But it's unique and arbitrary. It really had,
It's not arbitrary. You come home from school, there's one baseball game on. It's the Cubs. That was unique.
But it's unique, but it's also very arbitrary that someone who doesn't happen to live in Chicago happen to have access to WGN.
Yes, it was a superstation
but they watched them on a day in and day out basis, and just because they weren't born in Chicago, they can't be a Cubs fan.
Well, this is what I would say. If you're in, just pick a team. If you're in Seattle and you get WGN, are you all of a sudden going to be a Cub fan more than you're a Mariner fan?
I think some people.
Well, that's a mistake.
But why?
That's a mistake.
Because they had access to the game.
Because the city you grow up in. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it.
That's old school rules.
Going to school and everyone's wearing Mariners jerseys. I'm wearing a Cub jersey.
If you're from Oakland, you're condemned to root for the A's. That sucks.
Yes.
And then what do you do when they up and move on you?
This is what I'm saying. You can't just
that's a good point.
Well, that's
There's
different.
no loyalty in sports.
You can
be a
randomly
mercenary
pick
if you
teams.
want.
You can't just randomly pick teams.
You shouldn't go
hopping.
hopping. I agree with you there, but you should be free. You choose whatever team, whatever floats your boat. If there's a great player that you love watching for whatever reason, then go ahead and just stay loyal to
This
him.
is the way I did it. But I would never make a rule on it. I fell in love with that first time I went to Wrigley. I'll never forget walking up that ramp and seeing, I grew up in the black and white television era. And the thing that struck me watching GN all those times was how it came to life for me in color. So I watched it on black and white in the 70s, and then I walked up that ramp, and the green grass and the ivy hit me.
Yeah, me too.
And I said, as a 6-year-old, what the F is this? And that first time it took my breath away as a 6-year-old. I still remember walking up that ramp as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old that first time. And
100% agree with that.
And I went to Bulls games with my grandfather. So it wasn't like I forced myself, but it's what I had access to.
Which is right.
So now kids have access to the internet. If they want to wake up and they want to watch highlights or live games of anything at any time, they can see it and not have to go to games. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up the biggest hockey fan. Do you know why?
No, because home games weren't on TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get it.
That had a lot to do with it. But I couldn't watch the Blackhawks play a home game.
So these kids that are talk about dysfunction, they're watching some random team on the internet. They can't have that same experience of walking into Wrigley Field all of a sudden. What are they a fan of exactly?
Or maybe they grew up watching the games and they took a trip and then they had the same experience as me and they never let go of it. And they're like, now I'm a Cub fan for life.
Listen, I think there's a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds out there who are becoming Timberwolf fans this playoffs.
And they fall in love with the players now.
Yes.
This generation, we've talked a lot about this on this show. I've explained this to Waddle. These kids are falling more in love with the players than they are the teams.
No doubt.
They're going to fall in love with Anthony Edwards more so than the Timberwolves. And they're going to love the Timberwolves because of Anthony Edwards now. It's like Caleb Williams. Why did Caleb Williams grow up liking the Packers? He fell in love with Aaron Rodgers, the way he played quarterback.
All that is true. But at the same time, you're still a Bulls fan. But they stink, so you might watch another team. I get it. But you always come back to the team you grew up with.
That's me. I'm old school.
Well, I would hope most people are. You grew up. This is Chicago. We have professional teams in every sport.
Yeah, but as I tweeted yesterday, I wouldn't blame anyone for leaving. I don't know if you realize how bad it's been. I was watching the Knicks last night, and we talked about this on the show. It resonated even more on Twitter when you write it down. I said this to Waddle the other day. I was talking to Carmen and Yurko, too, during Crosstalk about this, how the Knicks are in the second round of the postseason. And I was watching they were making their second half run yesterday. The Garden was up for grabs. We know the Knicks aren't going to win the championship, but it's still awfully cool to see them play a second round series, go up 2-0. Jalen Brunson, he's got that place going nuts coming back from the injury in the first half. And I'm like, my first tweet was, when's the next time we're going to see a Bulls second round series here
Yeah.
People started responding. Do you know the last time each team won a round in the postseason in this town?
Let's see. I can name the Cubs.
When was the Cubs?
Cubs must have been 17.
17.
Yeah,
so
17.
that we're going now on is 7 years, 8 years?
Yeah, White Sox obviously 05.
05. So for the White Sox, it's been almost 2
20.
decades.
Almost 20. Yeah, I would be bad with Bulls. Is it like 11?
For the Bulls, it's 15.
15, okay.
The same year as the Blackhawks. Now, there were some who said the Blackhawks won a series in 20. Remember, they added, I think there were 12 teams in each conference that made it that year just because of COVID. And they were one of the extra teams that made it. That wasn't under the real rules.
And technically, that wasn't even a playoff series. It was a series to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, so I don't count that.
Yeah,
I'm
Cubs
sorry.
and Sox both lost in 20, in the shortened season. So, yeah.
And then did they didn't win a round?
No, they didn't. No.
So under these real rules of making the postseason, the Cubs haven't won a series since 17. The Blackhawks and Bulls haven't won a series in 15. That's basically a decade. The Bears haven't won a round since the 2010 season. That game was in 2011. And the White Sox have never won a series except for the year they won it all.
When you put it that way,
think about that.
maybe I will jump ship.
Think about that. And so, and we've got to be prisoners to root for the team just because we live here?
Yes. Yes. Because that is the beauty of being a sports fan. You take the lows, you take the hits.
That's the beauty of being a dumbass.
Then, Silvy, the beauty, the satisfaction when the Cubs won the World Series came in the fact that they hadn't won it. That's where the satisfaction's even better for you.
I identify with that, but it's not for everybody.
Well, I think it should be.
Jesse, you are a mouthpiece for the owners, man. That's exactly what they would want to tell you. Yeah, wherever you're from, root for the city that you're from. That shows your loyalty.
Rooting doesn't mean giving my money over to Jerry Reinsdorf or any of the others. I don't have to hand my money over. I might watch the game.
And at the same time, if you have disposable income that you want to go ahead and invest in some other sports team because you enjoy sports, you can't give it to them simply because you were born and raised in the city of Chicago?
Go host your fantasy soccer show at 8 a.m. on Sunday. Take line 2. I need some help here.
You really want help from downtown Dean?
Yeah, it's the best I can do.
Out of all the people calling.
It's the best I can do. It's either that or some ribs from him.
He's calling from Carson's. What's up, Dean?
I called to take Jesse's side, but he went too far comparing it to fantasy football. I hate fantasy football. But first of all, I heard you talking about baseball being a rich man's sport yesterday, and I just wanted to say soccer viewing is a rich man's sport. If you follow that EuroLeague crap, you don't have a real job. You're like Adam Abdallah living in a fantasy world.
Who?
So
anyone who watches soccer that it's a rich... It's
middle of the day type stuff here.
If you have time in the middle of the day to watch that crap, that's a rich man's viewing sport. Downtown Dean is not necessarily a patriotic guy. I'm not a political guy. Like in Always Sunny when he says, who am I going to vote for? The Democrat that's blasting me or the Republican that's blasting me? I could care less. I'm not a America guy. I'm the furthest thing from a redneck, but I'm also very open-minded. You guys know that. I don't watch soccer. I don't watch NASCAR, and I never will. Jesse, don't forget, it's almost time for you to pick up your coleslaw for Mother's Day from Carson's Prime Steaks and Famous
man.
Barbecue.
I don't know what do you guys do with that coleslaw? That coleslaw.
If I told you the secret recipe, it rhymes with horseradish, I'd have to kill you. Take that.
So good. Do you know what Dean and his brother gave me? I was there a couple weeks ago, Carson's. Dino and his family owns Carson's. They gave me the remote of the TV. At one of the bars.
That's so funny.
The one in Deerfield. I got access to the remote. And guess what I did? Turned the Sox game off.
It's so funny you say that. The Landmark in Northbrook, I got the same thing. Outdoors, the first nice day about a week ago, the Cubs were on the road. I'm like, I need the remote.
Yeah.
Having the remote at the bar is huge.
It was. And I was next to a guy who listens to our show. And he's one of their regulars, and he was wearing a Sox starter jacket. He's like, don't worry. He's like, you could turn it off. They suck anyway.
That's how big Silvy and I are in this town. We get the remotes. Right. We get the remote at a bar.
Colin in Dayton.
But that's all we get.
Colin, I don't know if Jesse is happy with me taking your phone call since you're not from Chicago.
That's what I was about to say, fellas. Listen, I want to know Thanks for taking my call. I want to know who Jesse thinks I should root for because I was born in Chicago. My grandpa was a Cubs-Bears season ticket holder, the whole 9 yards. But Dad moved us to, like, Cincinnati for work when I was, like, 4. Am I supposed to be a Reds fan, Jesse?
Yes.
No.
4 years old, you start to go to school. Your friends in school are yes, Reds. Why not? That's your life. That's all you know.
They've lost 8 in a row, by the way. I mean, they stink. WGN was on TV.
I get that they stink now, but there's been other years that they've been good. You'll go to Great American Ballpark. You fall in love with going to games.
Oh, my God.
So what, you only go to games when the Cubs are in town? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You were 4. You weren't 20 when you moved.
Jesse, you got to come to a Cubs-Reds game at Great American. I would bet you it's 90% Cubs fans.
I've been to 1,000 of them there with Cubs and Reds, and yes, they are, because the Reds haven't been good lately. But the Big Red Machine drew pretty good crowds as well. It's been a long time. I get it, but that's the beauty of being a fan. You go through the ups and downs.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I appreciate you guys taking the call.
Yeah, Colin, that's a fun thing about being a sports fan. Is it's free. It's a democracy.
Right.
I mean, to do what you want.
There's no wrong answers. I get that. I'm
only in your world.
I'm trying to convince people, though.
We were talking about streaming yesterday, and I never brought this up. And I was listening to Carmen and Yurko have a caller a couple of days ago, guys. And I meant to ask Tyler and Meller this question yesterday. A guy called in and he said, it's gotten so bad with all the streaming services, with Marquee. And now, like, with the Marquee app, if you want to watch Cubs, I think it's $20 a month.
Yeah.
Which I love. I think Marquee does a great job. But I watch every game. Or NFL. And now you have to get all the streaming services. And for some, they're picking and choosing. And some say they're a sports fan, but they're not as big of a sports fan as we are. So instead of getting all of them, they choose not to watch as much sports as they once did. Because WGN made it so easy for everyone, and because it was free, and because it was viewed all over, no matter where you were in the country, the Cubs fan base became what it is today.
No doubt.
Do you believe now, because they're a pay-per-view team, they're not on free TV anymore, that it will, in a generation from now, make the fan, it doesn't happen overnight, but it will make the fan base smaller?
I think so. Yes. But it's not just because of that. It's also because, like you said, every team is available online, right? MLB.TV, you can watch anybody. So why would all these people just flock to the Cubs? You could flock to different teams. Yes, it will shrink some. And there's no doubt in my mind, because you're not getting the out-of-town fans because WGN was the only show in town for a while.
So this is interesting. I think this is where Jesse's agenda as to how you become a sports fan might play into the Cubs' favor. But I do think, because you've already got that big footprint of just a huge national fan base. So I think some parents will pass along their Cubs fandom to their kids, and so that will play into the Cubs' favor. But at the same time, yeah, I think all sports, I think they're grabbing the money because it's there, and they know that as live rights, they're the only entity that can command this huge dollar sum, at least football. And baseball, maybe not as much. But I do think, like, I'm watching it with my son. He doesn't feel the need to watch everything. He consumes it in small clips via social media. The highlights, like we used to watch SportsCenter back in the day. They watch it via social media, and he's not watching full games. He just doesn't.
Do you think we'll end up in a situation where everything is pay, and you could buy per game? That's come up as well.
It could.
You
know what though? I don't think the sports leagues want that, because they're going to find out very quickly.
Yeah, people
that
are
their
tuning it out.
consumers are not going to be willing
to choose too much.
Yeah, and they're just not going to be willing to give you those big fees that they're asking for individual games.
No, you're right about that, because you pay $20 for Marquee a month, and you're getting the whole season, but you're also getting the games you're not going to watch. You're out to the movies, or you're out with your family or friends. You're not watching that game, yet you are paying for it.
Tyler, before you answer, I shared with you a story the other day, and you go to a lot of Cubs games. My buddy, who I grew up with, shared a story with me, and we were out at one of the youth baseball games, and he was watching, and he was telling me that he had his Cubs tickets for Friday. He's a Cubs season ticket holder, and he put them up for sale. His dad was supposed to go. He could not go. and he put the game up for sale for face value. Good seats.
Brewers game, right?
First Brewers game of the year. First Cubs. It was a beautiful day last Friday, remember? And he could not sell them for face value online. Could not sell them.
There's moments like that. Seafood Dennis has season tickets, and he has moments where it goes fast, and sometimes it doesn't.
Like,
It's ficky.
are we getting to the point where now they're outpricing themselves in different ways, whether it's tickets or whether now it will become with streaming and things like that?
I think so. People have talked about being priced out, but of course they've always said that. Every generation says I'm getting priced out, but I think there's some truth to that. But I do think what you said is true. The national Cub fan base, it will shrink over time. That was something unique with WGN. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I think the national fan base will definitely shrink, but it's not necessarily totally because of the lack of WGN. It's because I don't think the next generation cares as much about teams as it does about individual players. So let's say maybe the Cubs get the next big thing and is a national sensation. I think that would help build their fan base back a little bit, but it could always swing. The pendulum could swing back the other way. Like, how many fans of the Dodgers are there now because of Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah.
And
But boy, those players are so rare. But
you know what, though?
No, but like
Shota was a good signing because they have Shota and they have Seiya. And so internationally, the Cubs are probably second after the
Don't say that
Dodgers.
to Jesse, though.
Well,
he
I mean-
doesn't want the international fans.
That's different.
But like even
That's the exact same thing you're saying about Americans
two
watching
players-
soccer.
These two players, if you grew up watching them in Japan and you followed them over here, I get that. I
So
get that.
That's allowed.
it doesn't have to.
I have a lot of rules. I'll write them down for you.
It doesn't have to be a rare breed like Shohei. It can be like Fernando Tatis. Like every generation has an equivalent player of Fernando Tatis. There's so many people that like the Padres now because of him.
Yeah, for some reason, Sylvie's kid latched on to Lance McCullers. I don't know why, but he did.
Hey, he pitched to Game 7, right?
Yeah, I guess.
And like that's no small feat.
Right, and he hasn't pitched since, I don't think. But
Hey, kids are off limits here. This is the Brady Roast.
anyway.
All right, 312-332-3776. A curveball, but a very good curveball, and it got us going in multiple directions with streaming and with
Fandom.
tickets and fandom. And if you want to talk about rules and regulations of being a fan, Jesse seems to have a lot of them. I say, it doesn't matter where you are now. The world is such a smaller place these days, thanks to technology. That's one of the good things about the technology and streaming is you can get access to watching all these games no matter where you are.
I hear you say you do you a lot. I guess I don't believe in that. You
Yeah,
have to
fan
follow
them.
my rules.
Right, fan the way you want to fan. But I believe that once you become that fan, you only get one time to switch in your life, and that's it.
Yeah, and I
That's
wonder
my only rule.
how these soccer fans do they jump around in Europe and stuff like these guys? You know what I'm saying?
No, you mean the players? The players move.
No,
but-
I'm talking about your fandom.
No. I'd say
your
most,
team gets relegated. Is that the right
No,
way?
they're- yeah, but
you
they're-
get relegated. You're still a fan.
they're more loyal to their soccer clubs than I think most, professional fans are to their professional teams over here.
Well, what if they're no good? What if they get relegated? What if
They follow them to the next league below, and then they chant for the ownership to sell their team.
Yes.
must be real confusing when the World Cup comes around? Who do you root for?
Country.
Well, I hope it's our country.